Hey ladies, have you ever met a guy who seemed like everything you were waiting for, charming, attentive, maybe even a little too good to be true? You felt butterflies, your heart raced, and suddenly, you were imagining a future together. Conversations flowed easily, he texted often, and for a moment, it felt like real connection was on the horizon. But deep down, something didn't sit right. You couldn't shake the feeling that you cared more than he did. Maybe it was subtle, a tone, a pause, a look that didn't match the words. Maybe you've been trying to rationalize it, blaming overthinking or calling it just a phase. But trust me, you don't need tarot cards or tea leaves to figure out a man's true intentions. You just need to listen, really listen, to what he says. Because the truth is, some phrases are loud red flags disguised as casual comments. And once you hear them, it's not just a hint to pause and reflect, it's your signal to run. Let's break down 5 things a man might say that quietly or not so quietly scream, "You're not important to me." Insults, even subtle ones. It starts with a joke. Maybe you're laughing too, unsure if it's even funny or if you're just trying to keep the peace. He says something like, "Wow, didn't expect you to understand that. Guess I underestimated you." It sounds like a compliment until you realize what it's wrapped in: condescension. These comments are sugar-coated put-downs, clever enough to pass as humor but sharp enough to leave a mark. And the more they happen, the more normalized they become. Before you know it, your self-esteem has slowly eroded under a constant drizzle of low-grade insults disguised as jokes. Here's the thing. When someone truly respects you, they don't need to remind you, even subtly, that they think they're smarter, more capable, or more in control. They lift you up, not laugh at your expense. If he's mocking your opinions, smirking at your efforts, or turning your insecurities into punchlines, that's not flirting, it's emotional erosion. Don't confuse sarcasm with connection. If you constantly feel like you're being tested or belittled, that's not love. That's a warning sign. And let's talk about how this type of insult always gives him the upper hand. When you call him out, he gets to play the victim, "You're so sensitive," or "It was just a joke." He flips the narrative, so now you're not only hurt, but also defensive and apologizing for how you feel. See how that works? This isn't about teasing or playfulness. It's a way to assert control and chip away at your confidence, little by little. And the longer you let it slide, the more he'll test the limits. Because if he can insult you and still have you stay, that's all the permission he needs to keep going. Don't give it to him. Now, here's the second one: mockery. Mockery isn't just about a few rude jokes, it's a calculated form of disrespect that masks itself as playfulness. It's when your partner turns your quirks, habits, or even vulnerabilities into material for his amusement. And while he might be smirking, what you feel inside is shame. Maybe he says something like, "Oh, don't let her near the stove again. Remember what happened last time?" and laughs while everyone else chuckles uncomfortably. Or worse, they laugh because they think you're in on the joke. But you're not. You're standing there, pretending to be fine, while something inside you slowly crumbles. What makes mockery so painful is that it often starts small, easy to overlook. A dig here, a smirk there. Maybe he rolls his eyes when you talk about something you're passionate about. Maybe he mimics your laugh or repeats something you said in a weird voice, turning your words into a performance. At first, you tell yourself not to overreact. But over time, these small cuts add up. Your confidence takes a hit. You start speaking less, second-guessing yourself more, shrinking bit by bit so you don't become his next punchline. And let's be honest, mockery in public stings in a way private insults don't. If he's comfortable making fun of you in front of friends or strangers, he's showing the world how little he values your dignity. You become the girlfriend he jokes about, not the woman he respects. Think about that. A man who truly loves you won't entertain others at your expense. He won't sacrifice your feelings for a cheap laugh or a moment of spotlight. So when mockery becomes a pattern, not a one-off, it's not just immature behavior. It's emotional neglect disguised as humor, and you deserve so much better than being the setup to his punchline. Let's talk about a type of behavior that cuts deeper than silence or neglect: humiliation. Humiliation is one of the most insidious forms of emotional abuse because it doesn't always start with shouting or name-calling. Sometimes, it begins with a calm, cold sentence that slices through your confidence like a knife. Know your place. Just 5 words, but they carry the weight of control, superiority, and deep-rooted contempt. It's not just about putting you down in the moment. It's about establishing a hierarchy where he stands tall and you're expected to shrink. And once that dynamic is set, it opens the door for repeated emotional takedowns disguised as discipline or tough love. This kind of behavior isn't a one-time slip. It's a strategy. A man who humiliates you knows exactly what he's doing. It's not about losing his temper, it's about asserting dominance. The more he can make you feel small, the more power he feels in the relationship. He'll correct your opinions, talk over you, or dismiss your voice entirely. He might even mock your goals or your dreams, reminding you in subtle, or not so subtle, ways that they're unrealistic or naive. This isn't just emotional distancing. It's about shaping your sense of self so that you eventually stop fighting back. Because that's the ultimate goal. Silence you so completely, you forget how loud and confident your voice used to be. And the manipulation doesn't stop there. When you finally push back or question his behavior, he'll flip the script. Suddenly you're the problem. He'll say you're too emotional, too dramatic, too sensitive, anything to keep you doubting your instincts. And here's what's really twisted. After a while, you might start believing him. That's how deeply humiliation can embed itself. It doesn't just bruise your heart, it distorts your mind. But the truth? You're not too sensitive. You're perceptive. You're responding to being mistreated. And the man who truly deserves your love would never, ever make you feel like loving him requires abandoning yourself. Now let's talk about another red flag. Threats. Threats are not always shouted or screamed. Sometimes, they're whispered with a calm tone and a chilling stare, just quiet enough to make you question whether it was even a threat at all. But make no mistake, when a man uses fear to get you to obey, conform, or back down, he's not leading with love. He's leading with control. A phrase like, "Next time you don't listen, you'll regret it," is not about keeping the relationship on track. It's about keeping you in check. It's not protective, it's possessive. And that difference is massive. What makes threats especially dangerous is how they twist your natural sense of safety. You start walking on eggshells, not because you did something wrong, but because you're afraid of what he might do next. Your behavior becomes less about love and more about survival. You hesitate before speaking up. You second-guess every decision. And instead of feeling held and supported, you feel watched and judged. That's not partnership. That's psychological captivity. And here's something even more heartbreaking. Many women in these situations don't even realize how much fear has crept into their daily lives. It happens gradually. The first time, it sounds like frustration. The second time, it's framed as, for your own good. By the third time, you're already too deep into anxiety to recognize it as abuse. But here's the truth. Love should never make you feel small, scared, or silenced. Any man who needs to make you fear him to feel powerful is not a man worth keeping. Because at its core, a threat is not a moment of anger, it's a clear message: my comfort matters more than your peace. And no one who truly loves you would ever send that message. There are few things more quietly damaging in a relationship than being constantly compared to another woman. It doesn't matter if it's his ex, his coworker, or someone on Instagram. When he says things like, "My ex used to make this so much better," or, "You should see how Sergio's girlfriend handles things. She's got it all together," what he's really saying is, you're not enough. And that message, when repeated over time, starts to rewrite how you see yourself. You begin to wonder if you're falling short, if you should change, if loving him means becoming someone else entirely. But here's the truth, you don't need to compete to be worthy. Especially not in your own relationship. Comparisons. There are few things more quietly damaging in a relationship than being constantly compared to another woman. It doesn't matter if it's his ex, his coworker, or someone on Instagram. When he says things like, "My ex used to make this so much better," or, "You should see how Sergio's girlfriend handles things. She's got it all together," what he's really saying is, you're not enough. And that message, when repeated over time, starts to rewrite how you see yourself. You begin to wonder if you're falling short, if you should change, if loving him means becoming someone else entirely. But here's the truth, you don't need to compete to be worthy. Especially not in your own relationship. Comparison is a manipulation tactic dressed up as an offhand comment. It's designed to keep you reaching, striving to meet some ideal that's always just out of reach. Because once you start chasing approval, you stop standing in your power. You start editing yourself, cooking meals to match his exes, dressing like the girl he pointed out at the restaurant, thinking maybe, just maybe, if you could be more like her, he'd finally treat you the way you deserve. But he won't, because that's not the goal. The goal isn't improvement, the goal is control. And here's the cruelest part, it's never really about those women. It's about keeping you insecure enough to stay. A man who constantly compares you to others doesn't want a partner, he wants a mirror that reflects his ego. One that makes him feel superior, admired, powerful. If he truly valued you, he'd focus on what makes you unique, your laugh, your heart, your weird little habits that no one else has. He'd make you feel like you're the prize, not a consolation. So if you find yourself stuck in a constant competition you never signed up for, remember this. The problem isn't that you're not measuring up. The problem is that he's too blind to see your worth without a side-by-side. And that's not love, that's emotional sabotage. And now, a bonus for the ladies who are really paying attention, the sixth red flag, blame. Blame is a slow poison in a relationship, and the worst part is, it often wears a mask of logic. At first, it sounds like frustration. I wouldn't be like this if you just listened more. Then it escalates to guilt tripping. If it weren't for your mom, we'd already be fine. Eventually, it morphs into emotional warfare, where everything, every fight, every failure, every moment of tension, is somehow your fault. And if it's not directly you, it's the people you love. Your best friend, your sister, your dad. Suddenly, the people who've always had your back are now targets. And why? Because blame is the easiest way to avoid accountability. This isn't about him being stressed. It's not about a bad day. This is about control. A man who makes you the villain in every story isn't looking for resolution, he's looking for dominance. If you're constantly apologizing, constantly trying to smooth things over, constantly walking around with a pit in your stomach, then you're not in a relationship. You're in a blame cycle. One where your voice is ignored, your boundaries are pushed, and your needs are always the real problem. And here's the most manipulative twist. He'll convince you that you should be grateful he's putting up with you. Blame doesn't just make you feel small, it isolates you. Because when someone attacks the people you love, it becomes harder to turn to them for help. You start second-guessing your support system. You begin to feel alone in the relationship, even when you're right there next to him. And that's the goal. A man who constantly blames wants to shrink your world until he's the only voice you hear. But the truth is, love should expand you, not confine you. So when blame becomes the default language in your relationship, don't internalize it. Recognize it for what it is, manipulation. And remember, you are not too much. You are not the problem. You are just finally seeing the truth. Like this video if it hit home, subscribe to the channel for more truth bombs like this, and remember, fall in love with yourself first. The right person will follow.